civilization is the state of human society when it enters an organized form of cultural and material progress. Mankind has witnessed several great civilizations that have advanced it both materially and culturally. Under material progress, the world has seen scientific and technological advancements. Under cultural progress, it has seen the development of modes of thought, experimentation, philosophy, and notions of equality and justice. Humanity has many civilizations to thank for where it is today in terms of the material ease of living that we experience. Yet, as the world knows all too well, material progress is not a guarantee against barbarity and persecution. Some of the civilizations responsible for the greatest contribution to scientific, material, and even cultural and philosophical progress have been the ones most responsible for death and destruction through their designs of conquest and domination. "5,000 years ago, humanity progressed from nomadic and primitive social structures to an increasingly more sophisticated form. The ancient Chinese and Greeks began to organize life persecution of Bani Israel, the subjugation of the slave class, and general corruption were as much a reality of ancient Egypt as its progress in other fields. Early on in the tale of world civilizations, it became clear that competition for land and of the great ancient Roman Empire. It was during this zenith that the Prophet Isa alayhi salam was sent as a guide to humanity. Christians believed that he was the Son of God. Muslims believe that a man was crucified in his place and he was lifted to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to return one day as the Messiah as the Romans, Persians and Egyptians had fought for domination for hundreds of years. In the east, the ancient Chinese empires under the Han dynasty and Hinduism under Ashoka had flourished and led to their own advancements. The Chinese were masters of ancient forms of architecture and also invented paper, the compass and gunpowder in later years. By the year 500, the Byzantine Empire was a major power in Eastern Europe and modern-day Turkey. It vied for supremacy with a resurgent Persian Empire that refused to be defeated despite a millennium's worth of wars. It was at this time that there emerged a new way of life, a profound system that combined worship, spirituality, and politics, with a belief code renewing the essence of the Abrahamic faiths before it: Islam. Islam spread rapidly in all directions. To date, the spread of empires was associated with pillage, plunder, and destruction. In the wars between Rome and Persia, Rome and Carthage, and Egypt and Persia, there are famous examples of entire villages being razed to the ground and people persecuted. Islam's spread was different. It spread in various directions, with the defeat of the Egyptians, the Persians, and expansion into modern-day India and Spain. None of these expansions were marked by any of the same brutality. To the contrary, the Muslims' capture of Jerusalem, without a single drop of blood, in the year 637, exemplifies the way in which lands were ceded to Islam through conquest of a different kind. Within years of Islamic law being applied to many of these lands, tens of thousands converted to Islam upon seeing its mercy and its justice. Europe, meanwhile, experienced the rise of the Franks and the emergence of a new Western Roman Empire. Originally a nomadic people from modern-day Germany, the Franks would eventually be led by the great Emperor Charlemagne. Out of this was born a new civilization, which would be called the Holy Roman Empire, and would exist in some way or form until the time of Napoleon in 1800. This new empire covered much of modern-day Europe. In the year 1054, the Eastern Orthodox Christian Church formally split from the Western Catholic Church. A few years later, the Western Roman Empire came to the aid of the Eastern Byzantine Empire, as the two combined to launch the Crusades, a 200-year struggle between Christian and Muslim civilization. The Muslims emerged victorious, but simultaneously had to confront an empire of a different kind, the rampaging Mongols. Their early war policy of mass killing, rape, and barbarism led to devastation for many cities, but eventually 3 out of the 4 Mongol principalities, or khanates, embraced Islam. The Mongols left their legacy on world trade and enterprise through the Silk Route, and also established an elaborate postal system. They faced the valiant defense put up by the Muslims, urged by great scholars such as Imam Ibn Abdus Salam and Sheikh Ibn Taymiyyah, may Allah have mercy upon them both. They were also eventually stopped, despite their initial successes, by another grand civilization, the Imperial Russian Empire. Initially a series of provinces that were devastated and dominated by the Mongols, it evolved into the Grand Duchy of Moscow, covering 5 million square kilometers by the year 1584 through conquest and war against surrounding provinces and medieval European states. As the centuries went on, the Russian Empire was ruled by the Romanov family, with a king called the Tsar, and would eventually fight the Ottoman Islamic State in the Crimean War. Islam, in the meantime, had continued to spread, and one of its great moments came in 1453, when the Muslims finally captured Constantinople, which became Istanbul. The Ottoman state would be responsible for the promotion of many sciences and encouraged religious tolerance. The conqueror Sultan Muhammad al-Fatih resettled Muslims, Jews and Christians from other regions of Anatolia to create a diverse society governed by Islam. As the years progressed, however, the Muslims declined. After failing to capture Vienna and Malta despite repeated attempts, they were eventually confronted by a resurgent Europe. In 1687, the Austrians defeated the Ottomans at the Battle of Mohacs. Faced by the growing might of Russia, and with progress having stagnated, the Muslims watched as Europe underwent a renaissance that saw science, art and culture flourish. The British, French, Portuguese and the Dutch developed into colonial nations. The intellectual enlightenment gave rise to the initial phases of what was to become the capitalist civilization. In 1642, the king and parliament went to war in Britain, and eventually politicians wrestled power away from the king, who was thought to be God's representative on earth. As Britain evolved into an increasingly powerful nation with worldwide colonies, the same enlightenment created revolutions in France in 1789, which saw the rise of Napoleon and a conquest of Europe that few believed was possible, resulting in the defeat of Prussia, Austria and Germany. France's imperialistic ambitions were finally stopped by Russia, and Napoleon's once so-called Grand Army was dealt its final blow at the Battle of Waterloo in 1815 by the British. In due course, these underlying tensions led to World War I. Britain, France and Russia allied against Germany, the Ottoman Empire and several other countries. Germany suffered defeat, and the blow dealt to the Islamic State was to be fatal. Secularism and nationalism had arrived, and the once great civilization of Islam was broken by the Western powers into a series of useless states which would be the backwater of the world.